You're in the 06010. Focus. Fantasy Focus.
What's good, and welcome into Fantasy Focus Football, presented by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. My name is Daniel Dopp, here with Field Yates and Mike Clay. Guys, I'm actually a little surprised that you're sitting so nicely next to each other, Field. After the way we ended the show yesterday, Mike had a little heat come in your direction.
Yeah, he sure did. And, you know, what's interesting is that a couple of things have taken place since Friday. Friday, by the way, I would argue that the video that's been circulating around the internet to every corner of it, I mean, from Adam Schefter and ESPN and the ESPN NFL and Pat McAfee and the Sports Center and every other Instagram account of note. Because, you know, listen, no, I'm just saying, Mike, I moved the needle for the people, all right?
That's true.
And TMZ, by the way, in Page 6.
Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, Stephen A., of course. Heck, my mom was like, congratulations. I heard you were on the New York Post. I'm like,
Stop.
I mean, on this, again, on the scale of things to make Page 6 for, not so bad here. But I would argue the video was inconclusive.
Really?
And I would say that some people might miss the fact that Mike actually pushed me.
Wow.
Kidding. I'm entirely kidding, of course.
Who's to say? That part wasn't on the camera.
On
There's
tape.
no proof. It's
Yeah,
just a rumor.
yeah.
So,
But I will say this. Since Friday took place, I've had three, count them, three separate draft lotteries to determine where I would be picking in three different leagues. A 12-team league, a 14-team league, and a 14-team league.
Okay.
In those three leagues, I have landed the 12th, 14th, and 14th pick.
No way. Boy, I wonder who runs our game to be able to make stuff like that happen.
You know,
no way to say.
You know, the people that were claiming to have randomized the order have not yet confirmed whether Mike may or may not have pressed some sort of button. But yeah, I got some bones to pick with Mike Clay.
Yeah, seriously, Mike. Do you have anything you want to respond?
something happened. Did I miss something? I just sent a really short, like 10-second video in to say it was feeling for you yesterday.
I like the, what was it? What'd you say? Like end of con?
End of transmission.
End of transmission.
Yeah, that was it, right?
That was the whole video that went out, yeah.
Did I miss something?
That was so good. I'm pretty sure that what I thought was happening is that Mike had buried like a rope underneath the sand just for when you got to the very end and he tugged on it.
Look, I really wanted to win that event.
You did.
And I did beat Fields time. I'm just saying.
You did. You did beat Fields time. You did not beat my time, but you did beat Fields time.
Yeah, because you made the football in.
I did make the football in.
Props to you. You did.
Yeah.
You did it.
Some of us watch Jared Goff on a daily basis. All right, so we got a big show planned for today.
Larger right-handed Tua Tagovailoa.
That's exactly what that is. That's right. Big show for today, talking about cutdown day. Obviously, 53-man rosters have been set. There's going to be some tweaking, obviously, still with how this works. Mike, how late were you up last night?
I went to bed at 1:30 last night.
Okay.
So, but here's the good news. If you go to the ESPN game, the cheat sheets, the projections, the depth charts, everything is updated.
Good.
Everything's done. Cut everyone down from 90 to 53 yesterday. Just battled through, got it all done. Activated a whole bunch of players, notable rookies that made teams. Everything's good to go. So go to town. You're in a deep dynasty league. Some of them offensive players who made the 53. Your boy Isaiah Williams in Detroit.
That's right.
4 right now.
DFA.
We'll get to this. I'm sure. Could be Tim Patrick by come week 1, who's signing to the practice squad. But guys like that, they're all in there. The PDF's updated, all 90 pages, whatever it is. So all that's good to go. I like just knocking that out, getting it done. We're good.
Machine. We like to have a lot of fun here, but like I talk about how Mike is the engine of this thing.
Absolutely.
The engine works especially hard on cutdown day, and there will be plenty of activity today that I'm sure Mike will account for. But absolute legend, Mike. You are A+++ in every way, shape, and form.
I mean, it's just like OCD. I have to have everything perfect
Before you
done
go to bed.
and clean.
Yeah.
That's how I keep that's how I avoid anxiety.
Yeah, but I believe this. I believe greatness is no accident, and I believe it's achieved through a handful of different ways, a handful of different traits, I would say. At the core, though, is hard work, and your determination and hard work are second to none. So thank you for all that you did, and now complete the Breece Hall dynasty trade.
So I get all my attention with hard work. You get it by just like taking a shortcut and breaking your arm so you go viral all over the place.
That's
is that what
it.
you're saying?
It would actually be dislocating my shoulder by tackling a dummy. Yes. Breaking an arm.
Hey,
Yeah.
you do what you got to do.
Yeah, the problem is, like, the expression like break a leg when someone's trying to wish
Yeah,
you good luck.
yep.
Yeah.
That's what you
Mike
did.
was
You
like,
did.
dude, go break an arm during that
That's
option,
it.
of course.
I'm just trying to help you out, man. I just wanted to. No, I appreciate that.
All right, so with all that, Mike, you got a bunch of stuff set up for us. Let's get into
Yeah.
the opening drive. First things first, how can we not talk about the comments that were made about Jamar Chase yesterday? Shout out to our guy, Ben Baby.
Yeah.
He's got a tweet that we're going to throw up as a full screen here if you're listening to the audio podcast. Ben Baby said this. Zach Taylor's comments about Jamar Chase yesterday were very important, saying that he was going to start week 1. In a conversation earlier in the week, it was not cut and dry that he would suit up for week 1. Even Taylor didn't fully say that today until he got more follow-up questions. It was a very notable development. Field, I want to ask you this. If we had a panic meter on Jamar Chase, green, yellow, and red, I feel like we've been somewhere in that yellow range right now. Has this meter gone all the way to the green now that we've had these comments, or are they still like, we're still wondering if it's really true?
Yeah, I would say that it was maybe hovering even closer toward
the yellow-red line.
We said, like, this guy might drop down to, like, the 8th or 9th pick in your first round based off of the fact that he wasn't practicing at all. It's definitely now drifting back towards that green light. I will be completely transparent with you guys when I say I'm kind of confused by this. Like, I would be very surprised if Jamar Chase just said, I'm not going to practice for 3 weeks, and then I'm going to wake up and just give up the fight on a contract. Like, no, I'm good. You know what? You guys are right, but at least I had 3 quieter weeks of practice time. My gut tells me that maybe this is a sign that they are getting closer to a deal, and perhaps Jamar and his team have calculated that if we start to practice and show good faith, we can push this past the goal line. I don't know that for a fact. I haven't heard Schefter say anything to the effect yet. I'm sort of like, why would you not practice for 3 weeks and then one day decide to if your stance has, like, is it just not going to?
Could it just be a failed leverage play? Like, he's just like, maybe if I sit out, that'll give me a hair more leverage, and they'll be like, oh, they panic.
I'm sort of
like we were
surprised,
panicking and signed him to a deal.
I do wonder, though, like, why practice now? Like, if it was a failed leverage play, I think I'd string this out all the way until, like, the middle of next week, week 1. Like,
push it closer to the
first day of Bengals-Patriots injury report. Jamar Chase did not participate, non-injury related. So anyways, for now, it certainly makes you feel better about drafting Jamar Chase. We've been talking about this even when he was not present there, that Chase's range was generally somewhere between pick 6 and probably as low as 8 or 9. And I don't think it's crazy if you take Jamar Chase 6th overall. I also don't think it's crazy that if you are still a touch concerned, maybe that number has gone from 50% to 25% or 15% or even lower. I don't think it's crazy if you take, God forbid, you go with Justin Jefferson or Amon-Ra St. Brown ahead of Jamar Chase.
Yeah, they're all close. They're all in a tier anyway. So I don't have, even before this, I don't have a major issue with it. The thing about Chase, as opposed to like CeeDee Lamb, we've talked about this, is we've seen that alpha production from CeeDee Lamb. We saw it last year where he was a clear elite #1 receiver. Chase hasn't been there yet. He's been top 5, but he has not gone over the top. So Jefferson has done that already. Amon-Ra St. Brown was terrific last season. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine wherever you want to put him in that tier, honestly. But honestly, am I concerned about it? No, I'm not concerned anymore.
What are the chances that he just wanted some extra time to take LSU to the national championship in college football 25?
I haven't dismissed that as the real reason
Right?
why.
So why he needed some extra
Is that like the Kyler Murray graph? Like with
a little bit, but he was
called
doing
the
in the
Call of Duty
offseason.
graph? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so surprising because it feels like usually when a player power plays on a contract, it doesn't just like die
just
on
give
the
up.
line and you're
Yeah.
just, yeah, you know what, I'm good.
It probably depends on the mentality of the player too. Maybe it's just like, all right, time to be a team player. Let's go win a Super Bowl. You know, all right.
Maybe, yeah.
It could be.
also
I
just
don't know.
feel like right now, given the contracts for wide receivers that are being
yeah.
handed out, like he has a very justifiable case that he should be paid, maybe not quite at the CeeDee Lamb level, who of course is just behind Justin Jefferson, but like if you told me that Jamar Chase signed a deal for $33 million a year tomorrow, I'd say like, yeah, worth it.
Sounds about right.
By the way, major win for Cincinnati, who when they had that 5th pick, there was tons of debate.
Yeah.
Do you go offensive tackle with Penei
Penei
Sewell?
Sewell.
Do you take Jamar Chase? The answer was you can't screw it up either way. You're talking about one of the best young players in football and probably the best offensive lineman in football, but it's a win to draft, retain, and make them very, very highly paid homegrown players because for a long time, Cincinnati was in the doldrums of the league, in part because they didn't have as many of those pillar players.
I am a massive Penei Sewell fan, so I often think about what happens if this had gone differently and the Bengals
Didn't
had
need
taken
to.
Penei.
I was just going to
They both
say
won.
it's probably like a win-win for both sides. Although on the other hand, like the Bengals don't want to pay receivers, and they've had O-line problems. So maybe they're like, I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they should have went O-line just because they don't want to pay the offensive line or the wide receiver position.
I actually do have a take on this, and I'm going to bite my tongue because I don't want to just totally enrage one fan base or the other.
Oh,
I have a lot of love.
That's a Mike Clay thing to do. Is what? That's how that works.
Tell me, what are you going to
tell me? Tell me your take.
Just whisper it to me. I'll say it.
They both should have taken Jalen Rager instead.
Wow.
That would have been a different
Wow.
job.
Okay. Well.
Sorry. That was.
I mean, who is that? That Eagles fans are like, yeah, good joke.
Because the
Like,
Eagles haven't nailed every freaking draft.
That was what, it's funny, like Howie Roseman tends to kind of, it seems like his draft board kind of aligns more with the industry a little bit. Like he always takes guys and the draft community is like, yeah, I nailed it.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But that was one where everyone had Jefferson over Rager, and they took Rager, and it was like, oh, come on.
That was tough. That was a tough one.
Can't be perfect, though. He's awesome.
All right, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. A.J. Dillon goes on season-ending IR, which means behind Josh Jacobs, you've now got Emmanuel Wilson and Marshawn Lloyd, the two guys there. Mike, I'm going to ask you this question. It's a two-part question, okay? Every season of Josh Jacobs' career, he's had at least 260 touches.
Yep.
Now that A.J. Dillon is not there, is he going to reach that number again, which would assuredly put him in the top 10 at the position, just being a volume monster? And if you're going to grab one of these two guys as a potential insurance back, Marshawn Lloyd has not been with this team and practicing for a little bit because of a hamstring injury. Is there any value in Emmanuel Wilson, or is Marshawn Lloyd still the guy in that backfield you would want as the number 2?
Couple parts to this. First of all, I think Wilson is mid-range insurance option, maybe a below-average one. I'm not very interested. I don't think in like most formats he needs to be on a team. I do expect Josh Jacobs to be a full-on feature back right out of the gate. He is going to be terrific. We'll probably rank him, I would guess, as an RB1 right out of the gate. He should get pretty much all of the volume. Wilson's barely touched the football in the NFL. As for Lloyd, definitely concerned. You know, we've been drafting him as a late-round flyer, as a potential insurance back here. Remember, he's a day 2 pick. And those guys don't always work out. And he's been injured. Performance hasn't been great so far. Kind of reminds me of
Andre
Miller a little bit.
I knew it. That's what
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Yeah, so definitely worried about him that he might just have a very low-impact season. Maybe midway through the year he comes back, he's healthy, he's playing well, starts to get involved a little bit to give Jacobs a little bit of rest. But I think this is all playing out for a huge, maybe his last really huge season in the NFL for Josh Jacobs.
I've really liked Marshawn Lloyd in the draft process.
Me too, by the way. Yeah.
So it's disappointing, but yeah, the early signs have not been good. And right now, when you're talking about late round flyers, like I would like my late round flyers to actually be available at the beginning of the season, not because I'm going to need that player on my roster at the beginning of the season. Like I don't expect Marshawn Lloyd to have a meaningful role week 1 or week 2, but he is now getting put behind the 8 ball here. And if something does happen to Josh Jacobs, the door has been opened, at least for now, for Emmanuel Wilson to engender some trust from this coaching staff, who, by the way, we have seen Green Bay, like I think about Patrick Taylor in prior years, where it's like the random third running back, does actually get some burn and some time and some ticks. So Emmanuel Wilson having a bigger role in Green Bay, if something happens to Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd, is not the wildest thought that I've ever heard.
You said that you would rather have, like, you don't want to wait. You know, if you're using a late round lottery ticket on somebody, it's not someone you want to have them miss the beginning of the season. The only way that happens is if it's someone that, if you know when they come back, they're going to go into a potential feature role. Jonathan Brooks, like when he comes back, the goal is that he would potentially come in and try to take over that spot.
Yeah.
A late round flyer on an insurance running back still doesn't have a ton of value. You got to have a bunch of things go right at that spot.
If he's on your bench, he's going to be your first cut when waivers roll.
Exactly.
Post week 1,
Exactly.
You're going to go after some guy that had a huge 2 touchdown. There's always those guys, right? Someone's going to have 2 touchdowns in week 1. You're going to be placing bids. He's going to be your first drop. So there's really no sense in drafting him this week.
Yeah, vis-a-vis like someone like Trey Benson, who I know we've talked about a ton, but like Benson might have a particularly modest role in week 1 because James Conner is healthy, good player, etc. But you're going to be like, well, but like if something happens, that to me, that player represents a more valuable bench stash as opposed to the guy who it's like, yeah, week 1, Marshawn Lloyd, unavailable.
Absolutely. All right, what about another running back? The internet panicked yesterday, Field.
Interesting one.
I'm going to throw him to Mike. If you could throw it to Mike, because I thought Mike was the
I have a tweet out there on
All right,
Let me
perfect.
Just read that.
So Sean McVay had said, here's one of the things that we're going to do. Kyron Williams is going to be our punt returner. Our punt returner, Mike. What are we doing taking our starting running back and being like, you know what? We're going to use him on special teams. Because in fantasy football, unless you get points for punt return yards, it's not like there's a lot of extra value here. All you're doing is putting more wear and tear on a guy's body. So how do you read into this with what Sean McVay said?
I don't think it's that big of a deal. And there's a lot of reasons for this. There's a lot of reasons for this. First of all, do you know who the Rams punt returner was weeks 1 through 3 last year?
Matthew Stafford.
Was it Kyron Williams?
No, he was the backup. It was Kyron Williams. And they had 3 punt returns in those 3 games. He was the primary punt returner. Game 1, you remember, he was the lead back. He played 2/3 of the snaps in the opener last year at 15 carries and handled all the passing down work. But remember, they were winning. It was that Seattle game where they went really run heavy to protect the lead, and Cam Akers had all them second half carries and out-carried him. But again, 2/3 of the snaps went to Kyron Williams. By the end of week 3, he had handled 100% of their punt returns, had played about 85% of the snaps, had a majority of the carries in weeks 2 and 3, had almost all the passing down work. He was crushing in fantasy and went on to just roll the whole rest of the season. Now, after week 3, they said, all right, we don't really have a choice. You're going to have to play like 90% of the snaps. We're going to pull you off punt returns. They put Austin Trammell back there. They caught Austin Trammell yesterday. So right now, their best punt returner is Kyron Williams. And also, here's another thing. Teams in general, the Rams specifically last year, averaged about 1.5 punt returns per game. So there's fair catch. It's not like he's going to be taking 5, 6, 7 extra hits on punt returns, right? It's just not that big of a deal. So also, he might get replaced again. They might claim someone today. They might re-sign who knows, like that. Things like that could change very quickly. So, and another thing is, it's very rare for guys to return punts the whole season or all of the punts. He'll probably maybe get 60% of them or half of them, and that's 1 punt return per game. So, that's the gist of the role. The other thing I'll add here, go ahead, do you want to?
I have a follow-up question to that. Yeah, is this as much Sean McVay showing confidence in Blake Corum as it is anything else, saying that, hey, if anything does happen, like, we love what we have in Blake here to potentially take some touches as well?
Yeah, I think, but here's the thing about that. We already expected that. We already baked that in. We expect Blake Corum to have a substantial role, and I say substantial, that could be 8, 9 carries a game. That's already baked in, because remember, last year Kyron Williams was RB2 on points per game. Him and McCaffrey were the only ones to average over 18 fantasy points per game. He was at like 21, McCaffrey at 24. If we would have just projected the same role, like there's no Blake Corum, we expect the same role, we'd be drafting him, RB4 or maybe 2. Like, he'd be in that conversation. Right. We have him all the way down at like 6, 7. He's going to the second, sometimes probably now the 3rd round.
Great.
That's already baked in. We're already taking away a chunk of those carries and giving them to Corum. That's baked into his ADP. So if you want to knock him a spot or 2, where are you putting him? Are you putting him behind Derrick Henry? Like Rashad White, who has a rookie himself that they brought in, Bucky Irving. Like, that's what I don't understand. All these guys have question marks. Kyron's at the top of that list, and is such a good, really talented, super effective last year. Good role. He's young, good offense. Like, all the other running backs in that tier have issues. Why is he the one we're going to plummet 10 spots? So, I don't know. I think it's a bizarre overreaction. I've been wrong before, but I think he's still in a great spot as their clear lead back.
I've always said that the NFL's offseason is way too long. It's too short for like personal life stuff, right? But it's way too long because things like this get a longer shelf life than they need to. And this happened yesterday, so it's not like we've been talking about this for a month. But like my surprise in this announcement yesterday was not at all tied to like what I thought the likely fantasy value is for Kyron Williams. My surprise, and I am admitting that I did not recall the tenure for Kyron Williams as the Rams punt returner to begin last season, is the idea that, like, if you had to imagine what a running back who also handles punt return duties would normally bring to the table, it's not a guy who dropped to the 5th round of the draft because he ran an incredibly slow 40 and there's like probably more power than like finesse and agility to his game, right? Like, he does have some agility, of course, but like Kyron Williams also is a freaking tank back there. So I'm just like, man, like, not the usual archetype for a punt return man in Kyron Williams, but the more you can do, the more you can do.
Yeah.
What if they claim Kenny Nwangu from Minnesota or something?
Oh, totally. And by the way, it's also, we have practice squad call-ups. Like, would it stun you at all if the first punt return of the season, which might be on the opening drive of the season because they're playing Daniel's Detroit Lions week 1 Sunday Night Football, it's somebody besides Kyron Williams back there?
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. That's very common. It's very rare. It's really just the specialists, the punt return specialists, that'll get like 90% of the punt returns.
Of course, yeah. By the way, like, think about all the defensive players who run on the kickoff team every single time the team kicks off. Is anybody like, whoa, hold on now. Like, TJ Watt's on kickoff team. Like, is there any way he'll have more than 8 sacks this season? No. Like, it's not going to impact the role of Kyren Williams whatsoever. Nice sign of faith for Blake Corum, but I think that was probably presumed the minute they used a 3rd-round pick on Blake Corum, which I thought was a bit richer than a lot of people probably expected Blake Corum to go. But he is going to probably crush it when he gets opportunities because he feels like such a Los Angeles Ram.
By the way, not uncommon for Sean McVay to use star players as a punt returner. Big year for Cooper Kupp a few years ago. I remember when he was the wide receiver 1 overall. He was returning punts that year too. I just think it's I would say a non-story. Ideally, he'd say he's our feature back. We're going to try and get him as many touches as possible, and we don't want him on punt return. Like that's perfect world, but that's not the reality of the NFL. You know, it's just it is what it is. So they like him. He's sure-handed. He's a huge part of this offense. I still think he'll get about what we've projected and how we've ranked him, which is a mid-range RB1.
So you're saying this is a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy moment. Don't panic. Don't panic.
Yes, I agree.
Let's get that nerd reference? No? All right.
Agree.
No big deal.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Mike Williams then. Mike Williams has barely practiced with the Jets, if at all. Has a knee injury.
Yep.
Took reps for the first time with Aaron Rodgers. Field, I know that you were, I don't know if you were trolling Mike or if you were actually looking at Allen Lazard as a deep sleeper, but is there a chance that Mike Williams takes over that number 2 role in a big role?
Summer of Lazard, Mike. Just watch out. No, I mean, this is like, imagine where has Mike Williams been drafted in like each of the past 5 seasons? Maybe not each of them, but like most years it's like, like
a lot
Mike
higher.
Williams, kind of like, wide receiver 23, 24. Now,
He was like T. Higgins before T. Higgins.
That's good.
Nice analog there. So Mike Williams, who on talent is certainly way better than where he is being drafted based off of ADP with
like
an elite
free.
quarterback. Yeah, he is basically free. So yes, this is amongst my favorite sleepers right now, acknowledging that, of course, coming off of this injury, it is going to be probably a different version of Mike Williams that we are accustomed to. Also noting that Mike Williams in the past has been a feast or famine player, even when he was at the top of maybe his value, right? But totally like this, like anybody attached to a fully healthy Aaron Rodgers
offense,
that I think is a pretty decent player has me kind of intrigued, right?
Yeah, he has time here to get in shape. It might be, maybe he plays half the snaps in week 1, but it's not going to be long. He's clearly their second best wide receiver. And he could be one of those guys that surprises and catches like a 54-yard touchdown in week 1 out of nowhere.
For sure.
That, by the way, cannot wait for Jets and Niners, especially if Trent Williams doesn't come back. The Niners also have injuries on the O-line. That O-line right now on paper without Trent might be 32nd out of 32. I mean, it's definitely definitely down there. I mean, look, Kyle Shanahan's a genius. He can scheme around it, but it's going to be a fascinating week 1 game.
Yeah,
and Ayuk too. Who knows? Like,
I thought San Francisco would be thinking long and hard about, offensive tackle or offensive line somewhere earlier in the draft. And taking a player. Dom Pooney in the 3rd round. He's a good prospect from Kansas, but I digress. I am not ready for one thing that I want to mention now because we're going to hit it fast and a lot next week. There are a few defensive juggernaut battles involving star teams in week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Our Thursday game preview for the first game of the season is going to sound so ho-hum when it's like, like Kansas City, like nasty on defense, like you might have to dock the value of your Ravens a little bit this week, right? I mean, not to the point that they're not starting, right? But like, I submitted my week 1 ranks yesterday. Not a big deal. Like I don't hustle hard or anything, but I did put them in already. I was looking at them for yesterday.
Did it take longer having to do it left-handed?
Actually, I managed to kind of
all right.
fingers. So it was definitely more laborious than prior years, but we got it done. I was a little bit iffy on some of Mike's projections, but we'll dive into that at a different time. But yes, there are a couple of heavy hitter games, right? Like some of the quarterbacks that we have ranked as like borderline top 10 players just draw brutal matchups in week 1.
Dak taking on the Browns in week 1 is going to be a tough one.
Best example of it is I've got a league where I drafted Dak, but it's I have a slightly deeper bench in this league, and I also have Caleb Williams. And so Caleb drawing the Titans, even with their reshaped defense, as opposed to Dak drawing the Cleveland Browns. So just it's week 1. Don't take how we rank these players as like this is our belief about them for the season.
It's one of those things I feel like week 1 you always get that overreaction. You're like, wait a minute, how is this guy quarterback 7 and now in week 1 you have him as quarterback 11? How does that even work out? And it's like,
I also would say that like the week 1 rankings, like I did, like my rankings will reflect that while if I were trying to isolate like just one game ever to play, I probably would have some of the players that are considered stars ranked a little bit lower.
Sure.
I also know that the mentality is for somebody like, hey, I drafted Dak Prescott. You're really going to tell me to play like Baker Mayfield over Dak in week 1? Like, am I going to really not ride with the guy that I used the 7th round pick on? And I get that many people will say, I don't care what the matchup is. I'm playing Dak in week 1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's fine, by the way. I mean, Baker, you'd probably have to add off waivers anyway. It's
Yeah.
fine. Like I think it's totally fine.
My rankings will reflect a little bit less of just the matchups in week 1, a little bit more with like, if I drafted this guy, am I playing him? If the answer is like an immediate yes, he will be higher than if this was a random week in the middle of the season and all that mattered was like how accurate those specific single ranks were and would you play this player with every single thing on the line.
Yeah. All right, a few more players before we move on here. Kendrick Bourne with an ACL is going to start on the PUP list. Mike, you have been all over New England Patriots wide receivers. If you're going to look at a Patriots wide receiver that you want to draft going into the biggest draft weekend of the year, who is it that you're targeting?
I would say two. Pop Douglas and Jaylen Polk are both excellent late-round flyers. They're very cheap. I was reading one of the 53-man rosters yesterday. It said Pop Douglas is clearly the Patriots' best wide receiver. I think that could potentially change during the season. Polk should have the higher ceiling. Second-round pick, obviously, can do a lot, has a high ceiling. One of you could talk more about that. You're one of your guys' field. But I think you're going to see a lot of volume, good PPR monster for Pop Douglas early on in the season. Could flirt with flex value. Probably not going to score a lot of touchdowns, but could soak up a lot of targets. And then Polk's one of them bench guys that at some point could maybe work his way into the conversation.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of a roster construction debate. It's what are you looking for? Because Pop Douglas, I think, has a chance to lead the team in catches this year. He or KJ Osborne. I'm not calling him a sleeper. I would just say like a name that we haven't discussed a whole lot, who's like the most veteran, experienced player in this offense amongst the pass catchers that are currently available. But like Pop Douglas, who had 0 touchdowns last year, I don't think has the upside that Jaylen Polk does. So if you're sitting there and you're saying like, I don't feel great about this Patriots offense, but I'm going to swing for like a few feet short of the fence, I think the answer is Jaylen Polk. I just think he has a chance to become a very good player in short order, especially because I believe, based off of the depth chart right now, he should be playing a whole bunch for the Patriots because he's as talented as anybody in that entire wide receiver room right now. Like not later, like in time, like right this second.
And I think he will. I'm guessing it's going to be like, it should be Pop and then Polk and then probably Osborne out there and then Tyquan Thornton worked into the rotation. That would be my guess for how they deploy receiver in week 1.
Tyquan Thornton is a name that I haven't heard in a minute.
Yeah, former second rounder. I mean, he's getting some hype. He was a guy that I thought might miss the roster this year, but he did really well in the offseason. And I think it's unlikely he's going to be a fantasy star, but he's certainly going to be worked in.
All right, I mentioned this just a little earlier in the show when talking about late-round guys you want to grab. Jonathan Brooks, obviously starting the season on the physically unable, actually on the NFI list because he got hurt in Texas, unfortunately. It doesn't seem like it's even a conversation, and I hate to say this, but if you're choosing one of these other two running backs, it's going to be Chuba Hubbard over Miles Sanders, and it's not even close.
It's really boring, and it might work.
Yep.
I don't think Chuba Hubbard is going to win you your league, but like if you're a zero RB strategy guy, a name, not the first name off the board for my running back.
I would agree.
A pad your depth guy will be Chuba Hubbard. Heck, even if you go early even if you attack running backs early, Chuba will have some value. Mike, where did he rank last year in touches? You taught us this about 3 weeks ago.
RB9.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah,
so
it is. Yeah, I mean, he was a major underdog to Miles Sanders to pass him last year. They paid Sanders so much, and he clearly passed him and took control of that backfield. Sanders is now a year older. Why would that change this season? So, yeah, funny enough, you could go zero running back, load up everywhere else, and then go like Hubbard and Jerome Ford and just go into week 1 totally fine with your two running backs. That might work for a month, but if you're going zero RB, that's the way to start it out.
He took over as the starter in week 6 and averaged 12.6 fantasy points per game over that span for the rest of the season.
Boring but effective.
I was just going to say, that is a guy that you can grab where he's getting drafted right now, and I have him later on in the show if we get to it. He's one of the guys that's rising up in my ranks given everything that's happened. But if you need a guy that you're grabbing off your bench to be a bye-week fill-in or a flex play, he's the guy that 12.6 fantasy points can absolutely help you.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get there. We're going to get to your stuff. This is important. So let's rip through this thing. So I want to hear from Daniel about his players on the rise.
TJ Hawkinson also going to start on the PUP list. Is there any value in any of the other tight ends on that roster field, or are you just staying away from everybody
If you completely miss on the tight end run, Johnny Munt will start in the meantime. And a not bad player, but there are
probably
several more than a dozen players that I think are better options.
Yeah, Munt was super busy down the stretch in place of Hawkinson last year. So, I mean, if you're in a league that starts 2 tight ends. Maybe you're starting
There you
him the
go.
first month of the season, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Last one here. Rams are leaving Tyler Higbee on the physically unable to perform list. They paid Field. You say to follow the money.
Yeah.
Colby Parkinson got $15.5 million guaranteed. I mean, is this a thing that NFL teams are going to do for just a blocking tight end in this league, or is there a chance that Parkinson could actually have some value in fantasy?
I think he made his money in part because he is a very, very capable blocker. But he was a good athlete coming out of college. He's a Stanford product.
6'7".
Minimally utilized in Seattle, who had a very crowded tight end room. He's a local kid too, so like the Rams wanted him, and I think he really wanted to be with the Rams because he's from right around the corner from where they play.
He got paid to be with them. So
Yeah. So, but I for fantasy purposes, once again, better options here.
Yeah, and Higbee's ACL was late in the season, so they knew they might need a full season out of Parkinson as the one. So not surprising that they paid someone. Higbee might come back in 4 weeks or 8 weeks, or who knows if he returns this year. But that was a neat spot. But no fantasy value there.
You will recall last year, Higbee was one of those total feast or famine guys.
Oh yeah, he's been like that for a long time.
He had a couple mammoth weeks, and then it was like, wait, he had 0 targets. Was he active when I started him? Or was he inactive when I started him? Yes. Why did I do that?
How did I do it?
I love 11 personnel out there, and that's not going to change. DeMarcus Robinson, a little bit of a fine by the Rams, so he'll be on the field a lot.
Love it.
All right. Obviously, we're going to have so much more stuff. This is just the start. Obviously, with cut-down days, we got a bunch of player movements. We're going to have more roster transactions. Mike is going to keep us up to date within the game, so we'll obviously talk about that later in the week as things happen. But now we're going to transition. Mike, you got a new segment for us called Freshman Fun Facts. I want to turn this over to you. A little bit of a trivia.
Yeah, a little trivia.
I love when we get to play trivia with Mike.
Too.
Okay.
Look at this graphic behind us, too.
Look at that. That's fancy. Cool. So also for some of these, it's just going to be like, do you guys pay attention when I talk? Because some of these I've
Great.
already.
Whoa, that was good. That was good, Field. I should have said
Good one. That was a good one. Okay. So you ready?
Yes.
Kick this off. All right, let's roll right through them. We got 5 questions for you.
Do you want us to both answer at the same time?
Yeah, whoever knows it. Yeah. Question 1.
We don't have these questions, and we didn't have them on our sheet. We do not know what they are.
The other
There you
thing
go.
we could do is we could write our answer down.
We
You
could.
could write yours down.
Yeah, go ahead. Write
do
them
it.
down.
I'll do that.
Tell me the
I
answer. Question 1. Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Justin Fields. Okay, there's a list of quarterbacks. How many of those 10 quarterbacks finished top 8 in fantasy points as a rookie? Boy.
Give me the list
Wentz,
one more time.
Mahomes, Watson, Lamar Jackson, Allen, Murray, Herbert, Burrow, Lawrence, Fields.
Total points?
That's 10 quarterbacks. How many finished top 8 in total points as a rookie?
Top 8.
Oh, I'm looking at the list here, by the way. Okay, got it. Okay, got it.
Write down your number.
Okay, I am going to go with.
Hey, I wrote it down.
I got my answer. I'll answer first because
Okay, go ahead.
1.
I said 3.
The correct answer is 0.
Dang it.
None of them did.
Really? I thought
All
Herbert was
10.
the top 8, man.
All 10 finished top 8 in year 2. All of them did. So none did as a rookie. All of them did year 2, which is why I always talk about year 2 leap. It happens every time. Even the superstars in fantasy didn't really produce in year number 1.
Okay, so then I got a follow-up question to that, if you don't mind. We got 2 quarterbacks that we have kind of been touting of. If you want to wait at the quarterback position, you can grab Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams and potentially use them as a starter this year.
Yeah.
Answer this question for me, Field Yates and Mike Clay. Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams will finish as QB what this season?
So I'm going to repurpose the question and say which rookie quarterback will finish with the most fantasy points this
Fair.
season? And my answer is Jayden Williams.
Jayden.
Oh, I see what
I
you
see
did
that's
there.
a combination of the 2.
The thing about
I'll say
comedy
Jayden
is it
Daniels.
hits different
Is
when
that
you
on Hinge?
actually hear the joke and laugh right away.
He laughed to himself when he thought of
That's
that
what
last
it
night.
was.
He was late. While I was doing like punter updates of projections, activating the new punters, he was laying in bed thinking of the jokes and laughing at himself.
I was on a group thread with Mike when we were on the plane home, and Mike, being bougie, was sitting several rows in front of me in first class.
1 row.
And I sent a text to the group, and I started laughing at my own text. And Mike turned around, he was like, "Yeah, are you laughing at your own joke right now?"
He laughed at the text as he sent it, and then I got it, and I was like, "Did you just laugh at you?"
It was me, Stefania, Mike, Tyler, Dave Presley, Zach, researchers. I don't know who else was missing from that group thread, but
Yeah, it sounds like me. No big deal. No big deal, guys.
I can't. Like the thing is, like even when you make a joke It's like clearly a joke. I can't do it to Daniel. He's
You
too
can do
nice.
it to me. That's all
No,
right.
you're too
I was
nice.
actually kind of stunned.
love
I was like,
Daniel
did you
too
just make a
much.
joke at Daniel's expense?
I know. Like the nicest human alive. You can't do that.
But Jayden Daniels, it feels like, I mean, especially with the rushing, like Mike, you've got him projected as the second. Has this changed? You had him projected as the second highest rushing total amongst all quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's still there.
That's still the case. If you look back at the last, 10, 20 years, the quarterbacks that are fantasy relevant, that have QB1 weeks and we're starting, are ones that add value with their legs. So Jayden Daniels can do that at, we think, an elite level. And Caleb Williams can run pretty. It wouldn't surprise me if he ran for 300-some yards this season on top of throwing for 20-plus touchdowns with such a good supporting cast. So this feels like it could be the exception to the rule, at least for those two guys.
I have Jayden Daniels ranked 12th in quarterbacks. Caleb Williams ranked 13th. This is not an exaggeration. There's nothing I'm more excited about this season than watching the rookie quarterback class play. Nothing. And these two absolutely are the engines of that excitement. And the reason why is think about all the things that happened last year, the great things that were taking place left and right. Once C.J. Stroud got hot, he was the story of the league. It was, holy crap, we have this generational – that's too strong of a word because it's unfair to any of these guys. We have this, this all-pro level talent who is turning our franchise around. I can't wait. Caleb Williams, Week 1, Tennessee Titans, Jayden Daniels, Week 1, Washington Commanders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all in on those two guys this season. So excited to watch them play.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't wait for the NFC North, which is going to be incredible football, and the Jets, of course. My Super Bowl pick. Let's go.
Pick. Love it. I got to spit mine.
But I'm not as thrilled about Caleb Williams. Not in fantasy, and just like in real life, knowing that my Lions finally got good. I don't need another all-star quarterback coming into the NFC North right away.
The NFC
I think you got a year where you don't have to worry about the Vikings. They'll be, Kevin O'Connell's a good coach. They'll hang. Defense is okay, but
Bears could be really good.
I think it's a three-man
Packers, I think,
race.
are going to be really good again.
I'm starting to think I'm thinking playoffs for the Bears. Just saying that.
Whoa.
Oh, me too. I have them as a wild card. Yeah.
3 teams, 3 NFC North teams.
Yeah,
make
that's
it
how I
really
have
good.
it.
believe so,
Yeah,
yeah.
3 in.
And
Yeah.
one NFC East wild card, and then
The other divisions.
Yeah, the South, probably one team. I think it's Atlanta. That's it.
It feels like someone between
It's going to be a whole podcast.
This could be.
Rams versus a second NFC North team are the
Yeah,
ones that I'm currently debating.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2, Mike. Giving it to
There
you.
you go. Question 2. Over the last decade, only 33 rookie receivers finished top 35 in fantasy points. Of those 33, how many were drafted in the first 3 rounds? And I'll give you a multiple choice here. 15, 20, 25, or 30.
I'm going 25.
I'm going to go with 20.
30.
Wow.
30 out of 33 were picked in the first 3
Pukas
rounds.
are very.
That showed exactly right. It shows you how rare someone like Puka is. And generally, if you're going shopping for late round flyers, you want to look at those first day 1 and day 2 draft picks. Again, I talk about this a lot. You could pick apart and say, oh, this guy busted, that guy busted. Half of the first round picks are going to bust. These guys know what they're doing. These GMs know what they're doing. They're going to hit most of the time. There's a more of a success rate with the early round picks over the late round guys. And also the guys that generally pan out, like say like a Julian Edelman, who was the 7th round pick, it takes a few years.
Yeah, for sure.
Adam Thielen, it takes a while for those guys to get a real opportunity.
So then the question now for me is we got 2 guys in the first round, of Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison Jr. Field. You've been all over the Marvin Harrison hype as well. Yeah. But like Malik Nabers isn't a scrub either. If you're looking at both of these guys, could they both finish? And I realize the answer is probably yes, but could they both finish top 15 in fantasy in year 1?
Totally they could. And the thing is right now, for as much as I love Marvin Harrison Jr., I am drafting him at ceiling basically right now. And that in fantasy football, generally speaking, like a good strategy to avoid is drafting players at their ceiling, which is hard to do in the first round, right? Like you can't take Christian McCaffrey in the 3rd. But that is, to me, like the advantage that Malik Nabers has as opposed to Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I think as we get closer and closer to the beginning of the season, it's possible Nabers will continue to skyrocket upwards. But, Mike, the pedigree is there, the players are there, the path is there for both of them to be top 15 wide receivers.
Oh, yeah. Both of them are in excellent position for massive target shares right out of the gate. I worry about – I think the Giants have the shakiest roster in the NFL, so I worry about that just being a total mess. But even in that circumstance, how are you not throwing the neighbors the ball 10 times a game? Like, how are you not?
That's
so,
the goal.
That could limit his touchdown output, but I feel a little better about Harrison, obviously, but I like them both, yeah.
I did the most maniacal thing I have ever done in a salary cap league last night.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
It's a league that I play in with Daniel, Keith, and a bunch of Keith's buddies, Pierre Biquet, James Quintag, also ESPN colleagues of ours.
Christian Cockcroft as well.
Christian Cockcroft is in that league, so we're probably, 10 years into this league?
Yeah.
God, this goes down. I've had a very good run in that league, and it's keepers, salary cap. So it's you have up to 4 years of the player. So I decided to get a little weird last night because my team, I just did not like the options I had to keep. So I decided to do something wild last night. My strategy going in was I just want players on fair contracts last night. Players making money that I believe is representative of what their value is. We have a maximum of 9 wide receivers on our roster. I have 9, and I had 9 like 20 minutes into the exercise.
Into the draft, yeah.
On my roster right now, I now have drafted last night Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers and T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk to go along with the wide receivers that I already had, which were Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Josh Downs on a super cheap deal, and Jacoby Myers and one other like legitimate wide receiver where you're like, excuse me, like why on earth do you keep all of these players?
Why did you keep all them and then draft
Big
those guys
Bobo.
at the same time?
Yeah,
I almost drafted Jake Bobo last
So the
night.
reason I mention this is that like I am going to have the quirkiest, weirdest, like I basically like, and as I was in bed last night, I sent like 7 trade
Cooper
offers
Kupp.
out.
You have Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp, yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like that's the most ridiculous roster of all time, but it's an interesting. We'll talk more about salary cap strategy at some point, but like it's an interesting idea. Is that like, yes, you want to target specific players on occasion, but sometimes it shakes out where like you target a contract value, right? Like none of those players that I drafted is on an egregious contract. Some of them are values. None of them are like a crazy, ridiculous number that they may have trade value that I can turn my roster into a very wide receiver heavy one into one that has like maybe one quarterback or running back that I actually liked.
Funny, you and I have a dynasty team we run together, super flex, same kind of thing. We have like nothing at running back because we're just all value, or stacked everywhere else.
Stacked
so
at wide receiver and
kind of thing.
quarterback.
But over time, it'll work out.
I was pumped that we our starting quarterbacks were Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson in
right,
that league.
yeah.
That's a pretty good start for
All
them.
right, let's rip through these last race. I really want to get to Daniel.
Okay, ready? Question 3. By the way, I think it's 0-0.
Don't mind us. This is the Vikings versus the Raiders last
All right. How many rookie tight ends in NFL history have produced 750-plus receiving yards? So we'll just do like whoever gets closest at this point. So you guys can
Wow.
keyword. How many rookie tight ends in history have 750-plus?
I'm going to go with 6 because I know 2 of over 1,000, so I'll go with 6 total.
The answer is 6. Well done, sir.
Wow.
What?
Nailed it. Right on the money.
Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram, Sam
Ditka.
Laporta, Mike Ditka.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have them listed. I should have.
Vernon
Oh
Davis
my
came out of the
gosh.
gate strong.
Yeah, I think
Okay, that
that's a
could be
good
it.
one. Yeah, I don't know who the other one is, but maybe one of the older guys. But anyway, yeah, it doesn't happen very often. So interesting.
What about this year? I mean, do you think that there's going to be a rookie tight end? Understanding this tight end class is not as great. We were so high on Brock Bowers, but is there going to be a rookie tight end that can hit that 750-yard mark? I mean, if there is someone, to me, it feels like it would be Brock. I just don't
Best
know.
candidate. Yeah, it's going to be.
He is the
tough.
best candidate, but begrudgingly I say no.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely, but he is the best shot. Guys like Ben Sinnott, Theo Johnson, deep sleepers, but you're only taking them in really dynasty or super deep leagues.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, question 4, as Field takes the lead. From 2011 to 2023, so the last 12 years, 41 quarterbacks were picked in the first round. 41. Which percentage of the 41 took over as the starter prior to week 10? And this doesn't mean like they were in for a few snaps. Like they took over pretty clearly as the starter. And I'll let you just, do you want multiple choice or just want to guess? You
Well,
wanna
the
see who's
multiple
closest?
choice is already on there. So
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, multiple
the answer
choice.
is not 100%. I'm going to go with 83.
I'm going to go with 53.
Yeah, it was 43, 63, 83, or 100%.
I'm at 43, did I
and
say?
the answer is, what did you say?
43.
It's 83. Yeah. So it just shows you. There's
Yes, I won.
Yeah, you won. There's only one question left. You're up 2-0. Yeah, rookie quarterbacks, and there's quite a few of them this year in the first round. We know Michael Penix is very likely to be the exception, barring injury. They generally play very early. A lot of them started in week 1. So think about a guy like Drake May, for example, or obviously McCarthy's hurt, so it won't be him. But those guys are on the field right away.
Remember when Trevor Lawrence was in a quarterback battle with Gardner Minshew?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I do remember that. Yep.
Any follow-up there, Daniel, or no?
Well, I do have a follow-up, but you made me think about that, and it took up all the space in my
Okay, we
brain
can go to the
because
fifth
of it.
question,
Do you think Drake May is going to start week 1?
I do not. I think
100%.
I think the Patriots' offensive line, which, by the way, talk about a group that could look different in 2 hours. The Patriots got to claim every capable offensive line.
But they're going to have competition, though. Saints, I mean, there's a lot of
but
teams.
with the third priority, they could go big.
Can I ask how that works? When they have the third priority, does it like our fantasy where they get reset after they claim a guy, or are they third priority all the way around?
Yeah, so it's.
Or is this
it's a
too
good
much in the
question.
weeds?
No, it's not. It has some similarities to fantasy football. But basically, like, you are putting. You know what? I'm going to table this.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to only make people confused.
Okay, deal. That's
The
fair.
bottom line is this: with the third priority, they are often at the very front of the line.
Okay, fair. All right, Mike, we got another question. Last one.
Okay,
Double or nothing
last
between
one,
Zach and
and this is a Moneyball question. It's for 3 points.
Oh, nice! Yes.
You're like the
Wild.
older brother who makes up the rules.
Wild how
The younger
that
brother
works.
becomes more and
Okay.
more athletic. Yeah.
Since the year 2000, what percentage of wide receivers who finished top 30 in fantasy points as a rookie repeated as a top 30 receiver the next season?
95.
16%, 36%, 56%, or 76%?
76%.
76%.
Daniel wins.
Yes, I said it first.
What? This is ridiculous.
I did listen because we had this. You've talked about this.
Yeah,
a
I've talked
He
handful
about
of
loves
this
that
before.
before. They make the questions easy, dude.
I just give it to Field or give it to Daniel because he's so nice, like you said earlier.
That's like in like Jeopardy. You know, obviously the smart people on Jeopardy often leave like the low money value questions at the very end, and it's like the category is like countries, and it's like for $200, like what country are the United States in?
Yeah.
Right? Even I could answer that one. That was what just
I
happened.
get those wrong too, but yeah.
What? Dang it!
So good.
Well, congratulations, Daniel. You
All right.
All right, well done.
Which one of these these rookie wide receivers then is most likely to crack the top 30?
Dylan Polk.
Xavier Worthy, Roma Dunze,
All of them.
Lad McConkey, or Brian Thomas? Which one Field would you say is in a situation where they could crack
want
top
all of
30?
them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like all those picks. Believe it or not, like the top 30 of wide receivers in total points is not a crazy threshold to crack because there's going to be plenty of injuries throughout the year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy because I feel like his spot might be like, you know, first of all, you have the elite upside just because you play in the Patrick Mahomes offense. And unlike Roma Dunze, who I think is a more talented player than Xavier Worthy, obviously a very different player, his role is less dependent upon the role of the two players in front of him, whereas Xavier Worthy could be the Chiefs' number one wide receiver this year. I am on the Rashee Rice Island.
Yep.
Old as that may be. But I think Xavier Worthy could be the Chiefs' number one wideout.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Worthy is going to come out firing in week one. It really looks like there's a good connection there with Patrick Mahomes. And also, we didn't mention this, but Kadarius Toney, it doesn't really affect Worthy, but Kadarius Toney was waived yesterday, so he's out of there. We don't have to worry about him
Think he gets
stealing
claimed?
touches.
I'm going to go with no.
I don't know. That's a good question. I think one team, all it takes is one to be
lot of
fascinated
baggage.
with
Lot of
is
baggage. Giants?
there is. Yeah, I mean, they don't really. No, it's a good joke.
Reunion, it's a joke.
Of course, my brain goes right to the depth.
I feel like being serious is like
I'm not even thinking about the rest, but there are teams that have.
That have him projected for 43.9 receptions this season. Oh wait, he played for them back in the day.
Yeah, we talked about this before the show. Waivers will be busy because a lot of times teams, when they're cutting players, leave very clear holes in their roster, whether it's 8 offensive linemen or 2 running backs or tight ends, and that tells you that it's pretty much 100% that they're going to claim someone or they're about to sign someone. So a lot of teams did that yesterday. There's going to be quite a bit of activity.
And as much as I'm really happy for some of the cool stories that took place of guys making a roster last night, it's going to change today, unfortunately.
Yeah, some of them will get cut loose. Yep.
All right, let's turn the tables, can we?
yeah, let's do it.
Okay, Daniel Dopp's players on the rise. We've got 5 names here, Daniel. Players that you believe are on the rise in terms of overall value, or you are drafting sooner. How are you defining on the rise?
These are players that are climbing up my rankings based on either I'm finally coming around to them, we've seen some things that happen, and there are clear paths to opportunities or targets in their offense. So I'm going to start, and we've mentioned a handful of these already, but not everyone listens or watches every single show. So we're going to
Also,
say
guys,
that.
we're in like day, I don't know, whatever, 20-something of the show.
The show, I
There's
couldn't
so many
even-
ways you can slice up the preseason.
Yeah.
So who starts?
I'm going to start with Rashee Rice.
Like it.
Obviously, we're in a situation where Field, and we got to say this first, we've been saying this every time, there is a legal situation that needs to play out. Right now, the NFL is not going to do anything until the legal situation plays out on that side, and then the NFL will do its own investigation. But because of all the things that we thought, Rice's ADP slipped huge this year. Was very, very late, still much later than it should be right now. ADP has him coming off the board as a 33rd wide receiver in the 9th round. If you wait until the 9th round and you're drafting today, you're not going to be able to get Rashee Rice. Just period, end of story. When you look at what he did last year, it was basically a tale of two halves. And we've talked about this a couple shows ago with Stefania. Wide receiver 27 as a rookie. But from weeks 12 to 17, Rice was wide receiver 4 in fantasy points. He had a 27.8% target share. He was top 7 in targets, receiving yards, and receptions. There is a lot to be able to love about what Rashee Rice can continue to do in this offense, in spite of the fact that they added Xavier Worthy, who we just talked about, and Hollywood Brown, who has been banged up. I love Rashee Rice, and the idea that he's coming off the board as a 33rd wide receiver is obnoxiously low. There is still a chance that if this situation does play out from a legal perspective, the NFL could suspend him at some point this season. But with where you're able to draft Rashee Rice right now, it is way too low. He is a guy that has climbed way up my boards. I'm taking Rashee Rice. I'm absolutely grabbing him at the dip. He's my wide receiver 24.
On the dip. Let me ask Mike a trivia question, because Mike has talked about how the Chiefs' offense is going to look a lot different this year. Mike, where did Rashee Rice rank amongst qualified players in average depth of target?
I believe he was last. Lowest or very close to it.
Okay. Do you have an idea of like what number that was?
Out of how many qualified?
I'm not going to give you that number.
I don't know, 85th out of 85.
229th.
Okay, so we're using everyone then. Out of all, are you using all players in all positions? Okay, I was thinking like qualified receivers, but fair enough. Yes.
I think the qualifier
was very
a minimum
low.
of 10 targets last year.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot.
Insane.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've talked about that. Like I worry about his ceiling a little bit just because of that short range area. Although it's still the Chiefs' offense, so he could be a short area target and score, as I have projected 8 touchdowns. So I'm with you. I mean, if he's not suspended at any point this season, he is going to be a discount throughout the summer as his ADP dip from where we initially had him. But it's going to be a different offense there. I expect to bounce back. The Chiefs are going to be more vertical this year. Hollywood Brown will be back at some point. Xavier Worthy. It's going to be a better offense, a more fun offense. I think they rebound. Because remember, they were mid-pack in EPA last year.
Yeah.
They really did fall off. I think they fix it this year.
Yeah, Mahomes, that was the floor for Mahomes last year, finishing as QB12. We expect a lot more from him. All right, another guy that I have, and this unfortunately has to do with Jonathan Brooks, but Chuba Hubbard needs to climb up draft boards. I have raised him up a fair amount. Jonathan Brooks is obviously going to be the future of that backfield, but starting on the NFI list, going to miss at least the first 4 weeks. And then even once that happens, guys, still hasn't practiced with the team. Has not practiced with this team since he was drafted. Even once he comes back, he's now got to get back to not just performance, but being able to understand, I've never played in the NFL. He's basically going to learn on the fly as he does this. Chuba Hubbard, I said it earlier in the show, he was not sexy, but he had a bunch of volume. When Miles Sanders did not work out, he was very, very efficient, very, very heavily utilized. Once he took over as the starter, he was 5th in the NFL in touches and 14th in the NFL in scrimmage yards. 12.6 fantasy points per game. A guy that you can grab basically free coming off the board in the 16th round right now. You're going to have a starting running back for a number of weeks. Like I said, a bye week fill-in or a flex play if you need someone because someone else gets hurt. I think there's a lot of really good value on Chuba Hubbard, and he's, like I said, basically free in drafts.
Okay, well said. Yeah, not more to add. I agree.
Halo.
Excellent late-round flyer right now, and potential starter. Certainly a flex candidate right out of the gate the
Totally
first month
agree.
of the season.
Yep. Again, I did my week 1 and my week 2 through 7.
Oh, wow.
I left 18 off the board because I wanted to let you guys feel a little bit more adequate. But yeah, he was higher in my week 1 rankings than his current ADP would.
You're going to start on 2025 ranks later today then?
Those
Or?
are
Wow.
completed.
Wow.
Okay, they're done. Okay, good.
Actually, I'm working on my 2031 NFL draft rankings.
Wow. Chuba Hubbard right now, though, coming off the board as the 45th running back. 40
Too low.
running back. That's ridiculous. All right. Another guy. Obviously, we talked about this yesterday, too. Nick Chubb is going to start the season on the PUP list, who have no idea when he is going to be able to be back with this team, which means Jerome Ford, who's being drafted after Nick Chubb, is great value. Again, another guy that wasn't super sexy, but when he's coming off the board in the 13th round last year, he averaged 12.4 fantasy points per game. He's basically the same thing that Chuba Hubbard was for the Panthers. And you know that you're going to be able to get him as a guy that you can play for at least the first 4 weeks, if not longer, because of that devastating knee injury that Nick Chubb had. I have him as my running back 33 and another guy that you can just have as a bye week fill-in or flex that is almost free in fantasy drafts.
I hope people paid attention to that part that you just said. A bye week fill-in or a flex play. I don't think he or Chuba Hubbard fits into the conventional mold of what we're talking about for league winners, right? I don't think the difference between your roster being a champion and not is like, hey, I snagged Chuba late or I snagged Jerome Ford in the 13th round.
Yep.
But that's not every draft pick has to be the player that defines your success rate, right? I think the next two might fit into this category quite a bit more in different ways. But yes, like his innings eaters running backs, Jerome Ford, Chuba Hubbard, both reasonable names to have on your board earlier than quite a bit than ADP.
Yeah, sometimes you need innings eaters at running back. It's just the nature of the position because we're picking apart Kyron Williams and his role and everything. Like, there's just not that many clear feature backs. There's only a few. So when you get down to like RB20 and then now keep in mind we're in week 8 or whatever, and there's a bunch of guys injured. like you're just like, man, if I can just get somebody who's getting 12 touches, I'll be happy at this point. It's just the nature of fantasy football. So absolutely, these guys could help you get off to a 3-1 or 4-0 start, and then that basically sends you to the playoffs. They're huge.
By the way, there are guys that I think it would be considered like unkind to call them innings eaters, but if you look at them closer, last season they were basically that with more upside than these two players.
Yes.
That are being drafted way earlier, like Najee Harris. Was he an elite fantasy player last year?
No.
No, he's being drafted like 85 picks higher than these guys, which I get that. I understand why he's being drafted higher. But again, I guess because he was a first-round pick, he could have a monster season. But if I were to guess, like the more likely outcome for Najee, it's another solid, like push for 1,000 rushing yards, maybe push for 8 rushing touchdowns, maybe have some role in the passing game. But he has largely ceded that to Jaylen Warren, which was the reason why, as a rookie, he was a fantasy super duper star, and now he has settled back into what I would say top of the innings eaters bracket
on a list. Yeah, I'm with you on that. The big difference, I think, for me with Najee Harris is like he's just going to have competition right out of the gate with Jaylen Warren, whereas out of the gate for these two guys, they're the kind of the clear-cut number ones in both their offenses, in Jerome Ford and Chuba Hubbard. That could obviously change, as the guys come back.
Yeah, by the way, Cleveland did waive Deontay Foreman, or I guess release Deontay Foreman. We'll see if they bring him back as a vet or if they claim someone today. We'll see how that works out.
You can see both.
They're not done at running back. It's Pierre Strong is the 2, and that's it. So they'll add someone.
They have just 2 backs right now.
All right, I got 2 wide receivers, and these ones aren't tied to injuries. This is just me being a little bit higher on these guys than I have been throughout the offseason based on how things have worked out. Terry McLaurin. Can you tell me how many awful quarterbacks Terry McLaurin has had to endure in his NFL career?
Like 15.
Quite a few.
Well, quite a few. Double digit is what we can say for a fact. Now, obviously, we saw Jahan Dotson get traded to the Eagles, and I'm trying to figure out who else we're going to be throwing the ball to in Washington. I mean, if Jayden Daniels is locking onto someone, let's look at this. I think and Mike, please correct me. You just did the depth charts, updated everybody. The number 2 wide receiver is either going to be Luke McCaffrey, Olamide Zaccheaus, or Diami Brown.
Yeah, I think they're going to open the season with Diami Brown and then Zaccheaus as the 3, and then McCaffrey off the bench.
All personnel, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, John Bates, I guess, is the 2 right now. Sanat, I don't know. He'll be like worked in. I think they'll rotate those 2 guys as the 2 and 3. I don't think so though. We'll see. It's in Cliff Kingsbury, I assume. I mean, he used a lot of 3 and 4 wide sets in Arizona. I assume they're going to spread out the field like he normally does. I don't really understand them being like Brown and Zaccheaus are starting. That's crazy, right? It's definitely one of them things that I'm like, I don't know why they're happy with this group at receiver.
I wonder if Noah Brown goes to DC.
I want
somebody has. I mean, somebody.
I really wanted him to come to Detroit. I loved him.
I don't know where he's going to go. Noah Brown cut yesterday. Surprising because they guaranteed
that was a surprise.
$3 million this offseason, but they were so loaded in Houston. To get the numbers part of it. I'll just say this: Terry McLaurin fits into the mold of like a guy that could be a league winner because I know he hasn't shown it in recent seasons, not because of anything related to himself, but like he has top 20 wide receiver upside. You're getting him as wide receiver 34.
Yep.
Right. But there are a few of those guys that also fit in that category. Like George Pickens is going right around wide receiver 30, and Amari Cooper, who we know probably not going to reach inside the top 10, but he could have a top 15 season. There's Chris Godwin. Like there are good examples, but McLaurin, I think, deserves to be mentioned in that same regard.
I love McLaurin, especially Commanders have the 3rd lowest win total from ESPN Bet, 6.5 wins, which to me is like, all right, you're probably going to have to throw the ball a lot. And if you're throwing the ball, based on the names that we just mentioned, Jayden Daniels, if I was him, which would be great, I would be locked into Terry McLaurin. I mean, no offense to any of the rest of these guys, but like he is the one pass catcher that I'm going to try to find more often than not.
Yeah, I think the reason he's not higher is he hasn't done it yet. He's been around for a while. He hasn't shown that ceiling yet, and he hasn't really had a lot of top-end players behind him already.
Fair.
And I know Daniels should be a better quarterback, but also he might run it 120, 130 times and take away some pass. Well, it's great for Daniels. Might not be as good for McLaurin, but also it should be a fast-paced offense, which will offset some of that. So I think he's properly ranked. I mean, I moved him up a couple spots after the Dotson trade, assuming the target share goes up a little bit, but I think he's properly ranked.
I've got him as wide receiver 29, which is the highest amongst all ESPN rankers. So just excited about what he's going to be able to do. All right, last one that I have here, and I've gone back and forth in this. We've talked about it a bunch, but it is Malik Nabers. And it's kind of similar to the conversation that I just had. It's a little anecdotal with this offense. When you look at the backups here, you're talking Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt. Mike, you said I don't know if he's going to have 10 targets a game, but he should absolutely average at least 8.5 his rookie season, if not more. And he's going to have those boom games where he does have 12, 14, 15 targets, I believe, in this offense. Malik Nabers is a guy, and you said it, Field, earlier in the show, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers, I think the gap is closer than what we see in their ADP right now. So Malik Nabers is a guy that I moved up. I'm now the highest ESPN ranker on him at wide receiver 15. Mike,
Oh,
yeah,
you had to upstage me. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. I get aggressive, move him to 16. You have to upstage me. All right, that's cool.
Man, I remember. Do you guys remember on
Move
the
him to
show
14.
when, 2 weeks ago, I asked. I was like, "Is there a way to get Malik Nabers into your top 20 for wide receivers?" I expected both of you to be like, "Huh?" And it turns out that both of you said yes, and you put your money where your mouth is.
Yep.
Now all
I've
three
drafted him in a number of leagues there as my low-end wide receiver, too.
And he's gonna go higher than ADP. I think his ADP will climb over the next week just because there is this buzz about him, and he's such a well-known commodity, even as a rookie player.
Yeah, and I don't take that lightly, by the way. I'm not for example, I saw someone today was kind of going around social where they were like, oh, Kyron's the punt returner. I just moved him from RB6 to 17 or something.
Was it an actual, that was an actual tweet?
Yes, someone tweeted they moved him, and he's kind of getting torched for it.
You want to name
obviously.
names?
No, I'm not going to name names. You can find it.
Use
I'm
the
sure.
internet.
At Daniel Dopp on Twitter?
Come on now. Hey, now.
It was.
I'm really surprised that Matthew said that, though. That's really surprising to me.
But anyway, generally I don't do that. I'm not going to aggressively move guys. Like I study all off season for a reason and get them in order. But sometimes, especially in large tiers like that, there's justification to move someone up like 5-6 spots. And in Neighbors' case, it made sense.
I feel like this is another situation where you just look at and I don't want to, this sounds disrespectful, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but like Malik Nabers' skill set, and then there's like the rest of the Giants players in that offense that it's like he is just clearly the best offensive playmaker in this offense, even though we haven't seen him. Everything that we saw coming out of college, Daniel Jones should be locked in on him. So I moved him up a obviously big amount, and I've been drafting him there as well. Someone that I think is going to be awesome this year.
Good list right there.
Obviously not definitive. There's so many names we could add to that list.
For sure, yeah, but that's a good list. Do we think there's a 15-minute extra special we can do right now on Dalvin Cook signing to the Cowboys practice squad?
Oh, he did sign with the practice squad? That just rolling?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in the best shape of his life. So
there you go.
I mean, look out for that. Look, they have a need at running back, and he could very well end up being their lead back at some point this season. That doesn't mean that he's going to be a fantasy starter. So
I don't love it.
Not too worried about it.
I watched the tape last year.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot to watch.
Did you see what he looked like with his shirt off yesterday, Field?
Mike, I spent 4 days with you and Daniel, and you guys were largely not wearing your shirts. And I'll be honest with you, these athletes look kind of mid now.
Wow, I appreciate that.
We
appreciate that.
Honestly, all three of us, we hung with those 25-year-old dudes. Like I thought we were going to get. I was nervous going into those events, and we were all like in the 70th percentile or better in all these running and athletic events. So
experience. Over 8.
Yeah, we did good. We hung. We did good.
I was really pleased with that.
And by the way, we did a free throw.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I wish you could have been there for
you missed
the basketball part.
So we're doing the free throw competition. You shoot 10 free throws, and whoever makes the most out of their 10 wins the thing. And they were rolling through. He was making 4, 5, 6. Daniel makes 8 out of 10. He leads everyone, takes the lead of the whole event, and then I go next. Missed my first one.
Gets 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Yeah.
Wow.
So we won the free throw.
Unbelievable. And then we did the same thing with, no one cares about this, but like Mike and I then did 18 holes of putt-putt.
The longest mini golf course I've ever seen.
It was so good.
And he beat me on a walk-off long putt all the way across the green. It was awesome.
Wasn't that for a tie? That was for a win.
It was for the win.
That was
if
for
I
the
missed
win.
it, it would have been for a tie.
Yeah, we would have tied.
It was very fun. Anyways,
we had a
shout
great
out
time
again.
down there.
Some guy at the event shot 20 under on putt-putt.
That's ridiculous.
We started calling him Tiger Woods around.
Yeah, but they were like the pars were like 4 and 5. It was a huge course. I think we were like 14 and 15 under. It was like.
All right, never mind.
But anyway, awesome resort. We had a great time.
Our buddy Alex, who was there with us, obviously helped put the event on here from ESPN. He went 9 under through the first 9 holes. And then went even the rest of the way.
Oh,
so it was tough. He was like, I got a
course.
shot. It was a very hard course. But yeah,
hard.
shout out to Baha Mar and everybody that was a part of it.
Place
again.
is awesome.
We're going to talk about it nonstop. Hopefully we get to do this again next year.
Yeah. We'll be. I'm sure they'll be getting us ready for next year's event soon. So
you're going to be back and ready by then. That's the thing. You'll be good to go, Field.
You gonna tackle the thing?
We'll have more updates on. I'll have more updates on what's next for me medically. We do have a good idea of what's coming around the corner here, and I'll be back. I'm telling you what. Next time we go to Baha Mar, I'm going to be so freaking jacked.
I believe it.
Jacked.
I believe it. I'm gonna start
Yeah.
working on those vanity muscles I have.
You better tackle that thing again. You gotta come back.
No.
You gotta
I love the way that you were just gonna tap it after a field touch. You're like, I guess I'm gonna.
Somebody had to break the tension.
That's
Everyone
it.
was very
That was it.
worried, and I went for it. It worked.
All right.
Clay,
Field
good
didn't laugh
everything.
weirdly, but I did.
Appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. We're going to be back tomorrow, but thanks so much for watching Fantasy Focus Football presented by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
I'm watching the video again, and Mike really did. What a jerk.
It really did tap it.
You're in the 06010.